The following story is told by my mother, and it's a story I heard countless times growing up. It's probably the reason I got interested in the unknown and paranormal. This is her story.
Well, it was the year 1973, and I just graduated from Penn State. Dad and I wanted to get married right away, but my mom and dad sat us down at the kitchen table and said, look, if you get married right out of college, you're going to have to rent an apartment and you'll be paying somebody else rent. But if you look for a handyman special, a fixer-upper, then you can spend a year fixing it up and you'll be buying your own house. Well, that made sense to Paul and I, so that's what we did. Your grandmother was really good at looking in the paper, looking at real estate. After all, we didn't have any money. Your dad only had $2,000. I still owed $1,000 for college, and I did not get a teaching job yet. But so we continued to look all summer, fall. I did get a teaching job, paid off my $1,000 loan. My mom said, go check this house out. Now, I'm not going to say where it was, but it was in a suburb of Philadelphia. As soon as we pulled in front of that house, and it sat high, it was a very tall 3-story home up on a steep bank. But as soon as I saw the outside of that house, I said, that's the house I want. So it needed a lot of work. You could tell it needed a lot of work. There were busted windows, needed paint. When we got inside, yeah, it was a wreck. It was a total wreck. I could see that structurally it was very sound. It was a gigantic house, 13 rooms. It just had a lot of character. And of course, the price was right, $15,000. Which is hard to believe. You can't even buy a car for $15,000. We put in a bid. We eventually got the house. And we started working on it. And every day after work, Paul and I would go over, strip wallpaper, clean up. We didn't know what we were doing, but we sure learned. We had to get a big dumpster just to clean out the basement, let alone the house itself. So that took a long time. Our friends would come over and help us with scraping wallpaper, painting, whatever. And they said, this house really feels haunted. I didn't want to hear anything like that. I did believe in the paranormal. I did believe in ghosts. Paul did not believe in ghosts. I didn't want to think that I was buying a house that was haunted. So I just got that out of my mind. However, there were nights when we would go down to the car, which was parked along the street, look up, and the light was on. Paul would go in and turn the light off. We thought, we don't really know where the switches are, what switches turn what lights off. But after we figured it out, and I'd go down to the car first, and I'd say, make sure all the lights are off. And he would say, yes, I'll make sure. And we'd get down to the car, look up, and the lights were on. This happened on a number of occasions. Paul got tired of going back in and turning the lights off. It got to the point I'm just leaving the darn things on. That was our first clue. So we were broke. We had our wedding reception at the house. And my principal let me borrow the folding chairs from the multi-purpose room. We did everything ourselves because all of our money was going right into fixing up the house. And everybody had a great time. They said it was the best wedding they ever went to. And so once we moved in, settled down, something strange started occurring. I remember sitting at our love seat, and we had this old black and white TV that someone had given us. Every Friday night, I would watch Rockford Files. Well, I started hearing heavy footsteps in the second floor going down this very, very long hallway that was the entire length of the house. And I could hear the heavy footsteps above me as I sat in our back room, which became our den. Now, at the time, Paul was either out in the garage working on the car or down in the basement. He wasn't sitting with me. And this occurred a number of times. And I told him about it. And he said, You're just not used to the house. It's probably a squirrel running on the roof. And I said, how can I hear a squirrel running on the roof? There's 9-foot ceilings. It's a 3 full-story house. There's a attic on top of the 3rd story. How am I going to hear a squirrel running on the roof? And anyway, it's not like this pitter-patter on a roof sound. It's heavy footsteps, and it's right above me. Well, it's the train. I said, I know what the train sounds like. It's not the train, I'm telling you. He said that I was crazy. Well, one time we were sitting and watching TV on the love seat together, and the heavy footsteps walked down the long hallway. Well, I said nothing. After all, I was crazy. But I looked at him, and he looked at me, and he said, okay, so you're not crazy. As time went on, some other things started to occur. I was doing the dishes. Right out the corner of my eye, I saw the figure of a man walking by. It was like a shadow figure. He was all in gray, but I could tell it was a man. And I said to Paul, I think I just saw a ghost. On another occasion, I was vacuuming in the living room, and there was an archway, and you could see into the hallway and up the steps. And I saw the same man going up the steps. I remember cleaning out drawers. I saw photographs of this gentleman who was in like a World War I uniform. And there was also family photos. I thought, I wonder if this is the guy. So I asked the next door neighbor about who the former resident was. It was just this old bachelor that lived in the house. He was an alcoholic. Every day he would go up the street to the local tavern and then stumble down the street drunk. On one occasion there was a blizzard. He collapsed in the front yard. The neighbor and his wife picked him up and took him inside the house. A couple years later, he died in the house. He hadn't seen the neighbor in some time, and his name was Bill. And he called the police. When they went inside, he was laying dead in the upstairs hallway with his shoes on. Well, that made sense as to why I was hearing Bill walking along the long hallway and heavy footsteps. Another occasion, Paul was leaning out the 3rd floor window to paint because we couldn't get a ladder high enough because the house was so tall. So he was leaning out and painting the woodwork, and he felt someone behind him. They put their hands on his shoulders. Well, he turned around to yell at me like I was playing some kind of joke on him, but I wasn't there. Eventually, Bill settled down, but I always felt his presence. I always felt a heaviness in the house. In 1979, I had a miscarriage, and I was told to stay in bed for a week. Well, our bedroom was Bill's old room, but I did feel like Bill was there, looking out for me or watching over me. And in 1980, we did find an older home and we moved out, but I'll tell you, I was awfully glad that Bill didn't come with us.